Awesome. So, welcome to Music Elective Lesson 5. And this is the end of week 1 of lessons, which is great. We're halfway through. I'm going to introduce you guys to, or reintroduce you to what we did over the week. Quick review. Monday, we introduced everything. We started practicing activities, which we are going to continue to expand upon. We're talking about conducting activities, circle, square, triangle. Yes, we have circle now. Listening with your eyes closed along with your other senses. Pitch ID, practicing those with the links in each lesson at the bottom of the lesson page. Opposing circles in both directions. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Make sure that you're eliminating. We started with 4 lines. You know what those are. Check the lesson. We start eliminating lines to where we just start off writing with our non-dominant hand the sentence in mirror. That's when you're really showing that you have programmed those processes. Tuesday, we talk about sound, music, or sound moving at 8 football fields a second. Echoes, that sound is a wave. It's a vibration of the molecules in the air moving out as a wave. Wednesday, we talked about playing drum set and really putting together some of our independence of hands activities, all these sorts of things, and combining them with the rhythms we've been working on. So please continue working on Rhythm Trainer as well as Pitch ID. Thursday, we did music history. We talked about how before the 1600s and the Renaissance, which late 1500s, whatever, we had mainly church music written down, although there were other musics, more folksy, down-to-earth musics. The church was employing musicians, more professionals, and that's where we get a lot of it written down. 1600 Renaissance rebirth is what it means, of culture, of the arts, of science and politics in a new light. After that, we have 1600s, maybe a little after, the Baroque period with Bach as the guy. 1700s, really 1750, but we're going to keep it clean. 1700s, Mozart with the classical period. Then we have 1800s, Beethoven in the Romantic period. So Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. That's what's important. So roll with those. And that brings us to today. This is a unit that might seem like I'm teaching it because of current events, but I am not. I have always taught this unit. And this unit is on music as protest or cultural change. This really demonstrates how music is a tool of culture. It is a natural outgrowth of culture. And as cultures move with force in certain directions, the arts, all of the arts are going to be involved and a part of that. So we're going to move on to our Canvas page. This happens to be 6th grade, but they're all going to look the same. Let me show you that. Down here where you see your music elective lessons populating each day, here's lesson 5, music as protest or cultural change. Our video we're making now will appear there. I cannot play these for you because I'm making a YouTube video out of this, and you can't put YouTube videos in YouTube videos without issues, or even play the audio. It'll recognize that, and then we have a conflict. So, We Shall Overcome is a great example of the civil rights movement in the 50s, 60s. Martin Luther King Jr., who of course got a lot of nonviolent protest cues from Gandhi. In India, he's a great figure that a lot of nonviolent protesters emulate because he really wrote the book on that. But We Shall Overcome is a beautiful, beautiful song. This video is a great choice, I think, because it is being performed by a choir at Morehouse College, where Martin Luther King Jr. went to college. So this is particularly appropriate. Check that out. Also notice it's in more of a hymn choral style, which is also appropriate because the civil rights movement was largely born out of church communities. Now, Metallica, very good change of pace here, very strong. Metallica 10 years ago could not have been performed in the open in Iran. And this video is Metallica being performed just a couple years ago in the open in Iran. Iran is a very controlling government and state, very limiting of outside influences, particularly Western culture. The United States is on that list that they are not very interested in allowing into their country, culture-wise. An extreme example of this would be like North Korea, where people are smuggling in like DVD. Well, they have DVD players, but smuggling in DVDs of Western movies. Like if they want to see Star Wars, you gotta smuggle that in. The state doesn't want you seeing the outside world. But Iran, through culture and as an indicator, this video is starting to open up a little bit in those respects. So you're seeing some of that start to seep in. And you could really say that Metallica is kind of a protest music in Iran. So check that out. This is a very polarizing video. Jimi Hendrix performing the national anthem in his own individual way at Woodstock in 1969. Jimi Hendrix briefly served in the military. It didn't go all that well. He didn't go to Vietnam, but Vietnam was happening at the time, and a lot of people were started over the course of the war to turn against. You started seeing protest movements against the war. And Jimi Hendrix performed this version, which is very different. He injects his own version where there's sounds that could be interpreted as bombs or explosions or even gunshots, however you want to interpret that, into the national anthem as a form of protest. And the last one here, one of the kings of protest music in the United States, but in a very calm sort of manner, folksy manner, is Bob Dylan. This song is The Times They Are Changin'. I want to look at the lyrics for this, actually. A couple key things in here. And you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are changing, meaning that everything's coming. If you don't keep up with it, you're going to get left behind. Here we have, for the wheels, don't speak too soon, for the wheel is still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will be later to win. Basically, the underdog will eventually take over because the times are changing. This bottom paragraph really refers to how change is inevitable, it's coming, and how a lot of times politicians are seen as standing in the way of change, depending on your political views, or flat out, in a completely neutral fashion, just slowing down the gears of progress because they argue so much, things getting stuck in legislation. It's a pretty common idea. So, I have other examples which I would like to share, but I have to only share particular parts because of the appropriateness of the material. That would be like Rage Against the Machine, who represented the plight and the oppression of Mexican Americans in the Southwest in the 90s, 80s. And there's a lot of other protests that goes back further than that, but Rage Against the Machine is a more recent, easier to find version. Public Enemy, representing some African American communities, particularly in cities. This would have been late 80s, I think 89-ish. And that song is Fight the Power. An interesting one from, I believe it's Iceland. Somebody's going to correct me on this. Bjork's Declare Independence. You can look that up. It's an appropriate video. It's really weird, but it's very appropriate, very visual, very interesting. So keep in mind the role of protest in history and how we look back on it as either positive or negative, depending on how it turned out, and how music plays a role in that. All right. Have a great weekend.